All right, it is week 6 of week 10 of my kidney transplant recovery house arrest movie marathon thing. um, I cannot go out, so I'm stuck at home, and I thought I would just go one week exploring a filmmaker's filmography. So this past 7 days, I watched 8 films from the pulp director Samuel Fuller, known for his westerns and his noirs. I had only seen 2 of his films before this, Shock Corridor and Crimson Kimono. So let me rank these 8 that I saw these past 7 days from least favorite to most favorite. So number 8, dead last, is Street of No Return from 1989. I didn't even know this movie existed until I made my list of what to watch during the week. It's one of 2 that I did not know existed, and it's pretty bad. It's one of those movies you would expect the Red Letter Media guys to watch on Best of the Worst, but probably never would because it's from a, well accomplished, well known filmmaker, Samuel Fuller, obviously. Um, and it is better crafted, I guess, than most of the movies they watch on there, of course, because they watch complete trash. But even when you compare it to cinema in general, it's not good. You got Keith Carradine playing a Michael Bolton esque, David Bowie like musician named Michael. He's a famous musician, like I said, and he's also anti booze, but he ends up an alcoholic bum when his throat is slit by his lover's drug lord boyfriend when he discovers that she's been cheating on him. So, and one day later, not one day later, well, yeah, one day, not like 24 hours. One day later, he's got all this long hair and he's got this scruffy beard and he's dirty and he's disgusting. He's a bum, right? We pity him, of course. And he's got this weird, goofy voice because his throat got slit. So one day he's like this, and he's falsely arrested for murdering a cop. So shenanigans ensue. Now on paper, this seems pretty freaking cool. Seems like it should work. You got Samuel Fuller. He's known for noirs and westerns, and he's got a good track record. So you would think this would be pretty good. Somehow everything about it is complete garbage. Everything about it is in equal parts responsible for its failure. Acting, directing, editing, Michael's music, the score, the writing, like you name it, they're equally responsible for the failures. You can't blame one more than the other, I don't think. They are all to blame for its straight to VHS vibe, aesthetic, I guess. And that would be fine if this was so bad it's good, but it's just bad. Occasionally it does get you to laugh unintentionally, or get you to laugh at things not meant to be funny, but they're far and few between. Not enough, at least, to make up for the bad stuff. And at 93 minutes long, it goes on for too long. It's really tragic to see a once respected filmmaker like Samuel Fuller fall this far. So I had no choice but to give this a 1 star out of 4. Now, number 7 is The Baron of Arizona from 1950. This was from my Eclipse series set, the first films of Samuel Fuller, which I did not finish. I didn't get to watch all the movies that I wanted to watch this week. 2 of the remaining ones were on that set, but I got around to watching this one. The main reason it's so low is because it lacks some of Fuller's trademarks, and that's understandable because this is only his second flick. And I'm personally not very fond of, on top of that, I'm personally not very fond of films that have a framework of somebody telling a story. So this is based on a true story that makes it a little more interesting, but it's not really told interestingly to hold my interest. It has Vincent Price as inherently watchable as ever, starring as the real life swindler James Revis, who tried to con the United States government into giving him the entire land of Arizona and parts of New Mexico. This story is told through the words of John Griff. He's an agent, I guess, of the Department on the Interior, telling the story in 1912, when the story that takes place when this guy tried to con the government was in the latter half of the 19th century. So this is like some time later. And it just totally disrupts the flow of his narration and them cutting back to him in the room with all his bureaucrat buddies talking about the time when the land that they're standing on was almost swindled from the government. And not only that, with that framework stuff, it lacked the drama, the emotion, and the tension it really needed to make even a decent movie. It ends up ultimately just coming off like a typically rote movie of films from its era, the 1950s. But it does have some of Fuller's signature stuff. I mean, it's quick. Most of his films are short and fast, but they don't ever really feel rushed. And his use of shadows. That's his visual and his cinematic trademarks, but there's also his moral ambiguity that he likes and the belief in the vulnerability of narratives, that they can be manipulated, distorted for whatever gains. So yeah, 2 stars out of 4. Now, number 6, the big red one from 1980, I feel pretty bad for rating it this low and ranking it this low. I, I felt confident at first about it, but after I watched it, when I went to bed, I was doing some reading on it, and that's when I started to feel guilty. First reason being, this was taken from Fuller's hands by the studio. He turned in a 162-minute cut that he was satisfied with, but the studio was not, so they trimmed it down to 113 minutes. Now, 47 minutes trimmed out of a movie is enough to make a difference, and I think that's where a lot of my problems with the film lie. But what made me more guilty than that, more than anything, was that it's semi-autobiographical. I knew he was a World War II veteran, but I did not know he kept a wartime diary that he wrote in during his experiences, like there at the moment. And I did not know he got the the Bronze Star, Silver Star, and the Purple Heart. Nor did I know that he was present for the liberation of the Falkenau concentration camp. So it makes me feel bad. I'm like, oh man, this is like based on some real stuff that he saw, that he went through. And I'm not going to change my rating yet, because even though this was released in 1980 and probably shot between 1978 and 79, it feels like a movie 20 to 40 years earlier. And I don't mean that in a good way. It's just everything about it just kind of dates it. It does. If this was in black and white, you would never believe it was in 1980, because the acting by everyone except Mark Hamill and Lee Marvin are doing like old-timey movie acting, and there's this outdated music that is way over present. It plays for too often, and the war sequences are really awkwardly cut and staged. So yeah, I don't know. It ends up being just like mediocre, but there is a good anti-war script here. There are some good performances from Mark Hamill and Lee Marvin, and there are definitely memorable scenes. I do like in particular that the first half of the film really shows you some little sad, tragic truths about war you either don't know about or we often overlook. And I have 2 examples that I'll pull from my head right now. One is how there are men that are put on point, meaning the troop or whatever, I don't know what these things are called. These troops, they send out one soldier out unwittingly, unknowingly, what's going to happen. They send one guy out and a sniper shoots them, so now they know where the sniper is. Of course, it doesn't always happen, but the movie makes it seem like these guys don't know why they're going out there. They're just like, okay, I'll go first, and they get shot or not, all just to know where a sniper is. And the second is the reality of replacements, people who come in to fill in for soldiers that are dead in a group, and the experienced soldiers who are not dead, who these guys are coming in to help. They are so used to these replacements dying due to their lack of experience, just coming out of basic training, pretty much. They just expect them to die so much that they don't even bother getting to know them, and that's sad. Both those things are just really sad, things you don't think about or don't think about enough. I mean, I would like to give it a higher rating, but it just feels so old-timey in a way that's not like an homage or a tribute or anything, and not in a way that helps it, even if it's unintentional. I do think my rating can go up if or when I see the 162-minute cut. I know it's out there. I don't know where you can get it. I don't know where it can be seen. I don't know where it can be screened or whatnot. So if you know, even if it's a bootleg, let me know, because I would like to watch it. So for now, I'll say 2 stars out of 4. Okay, so number 5 is Shark from 1969. So I was expecting a way different movie than the one this turned out to be. I figured it was a fall from grace for Fuller, considering the name, the premise that it seems like it would have based on the name, and and its gap. So Fuller made movies, released movies at least 1 to 2 years apart, all the time up until 1964 when he came out with The Naked Kiss, 1964, and then this came out in 1969. This was the biggest gap, and it seemed like a pretty far. It just seemed like it was going to be a B movie along the lines of Piranha, essentially, and it ends up being completely way different. The original title was Twist of the Knife, which is more appropriate, but they changed it to Shark to cash in on a false rumor that a stuntman was attacked and killed by a shark during the filming of the movie. And like I said, it didn't happen. They just wanted to make more money, so they just went with that. So Shark really is about Burt Reynolds, who plays a gun runner stuck in Sudan when his loot goes missing, I guess, and he falls in with a shady lady who wants to hire him to raid a sunken ship full of treasure that is surrounded by sharks. And as Fuller has said, they're all four main characters are amoral characters, and they're all considered heavies, which was a rare, if not unheard of, idea at the time. So props for that. And I do like the characters. I do think they're performed pretty well. I particularly liked the chemistry and relationship between Burt Reynolds' character and the smoky kid. And I do like the jazzy Bond-like score. I thought that was fun. I do wish the version I saw on Tubi was better, because the one I saw was so bad. I half expected the silhouettes of Crow T. Robot and Tom Servo and Joel Hodgson. What is his name? Hodgson? To just, walk in frame, they're like this, and they take a seat, and they start cracking jokes. I half expected that to happen. Unfortunately, it never did. But it's a good movie, and even though it didn't go with the ending that Fuller had envisioned, he hated it so much that he wanted his name off the film completely, which they denied. I liked their ending, but I like Fuller's ending too. I'm not going to say either one. And I probably do like Fuller's more, but I still like the actual official ending. It still kind of goes in line with Fuller's frequently cynical takes. So they're both unhappy endings. So there's that. All right, 3 out of 4 stars. Now, The Naked Kiss from 1964, a film about a woman who used to sell her body for a living, now wanting to live life on the straight and narrow in a new town, never utters the words hooker, prostitute, sex worker, or whore. Yeah, I know that's probably because of the Hays Code, but Fuller takes it on as a challenge, creatively working around it, working around the censorship to cleverly use acting expressions, dialogue, editing, and imagery to address what exactly is being addressed, so much so that even the censors, I guess, didn't notice. It's kind of a masterclass in alluding to stigmas and taboos, just using, savvy cuts and insinuated facial expressions and stylized euphemism and visual clues. The Naked Kiss is also an interesting movie due to its fusion of genre. It's equal parts melodrama and equal parts noir, with a punky attitude in the way it approaches a certain subject matter. Prostitution isn't the only one. Pedophilia is also in this. Hopefully I'm coining a term here and calling The Naked Kiss mellow noir. Fingers crossed. I mean, because it's got the heightened emotions, the incessant schmaltzy music, and mawkish fantasy sequences, and it has the high contrast black and white, some use of shadows, and moral complexity and societal cynicism. My problem with the film is something I usually have a problem with films from this time period: the forced romance. So Kelly, the ex-prostitute, she meets a guy named Grant, a wealthy intellectual, and the two of them fall in love like immediately the first time they meet each other, which is very brief, and not much later they're engaged to be married. It makes sense for Grant to fall head over heels like that, and I'm not going to say why, but for Kelly, she doesn't really have the kind of personality that would. She's really confident and independent and intelligent, so it really doesn't make sense why she would she would, fall so hard so quickly. Also, when it takes a plot pivot, I think it happens way too early. It would have benefited from building up to it a bit more. That way we can feel the fallout more emotionally and narratively. It just doesn't kind of work when you rush it the way it does. And it kind of just, it just makes, it puts the movie like an abrupt stop. It just slams the brakes. It's like when you're on the highway, you're going 70 miles per hour, and suddenly you're just going 30. That's kind of what the movie does. And so I wish it hadn't done that. But I'm not saying it's a bad movie at all. I mean, Constance Towers as Kelly is pretty good. The dialogue is not cliche. And I like how smart Fuller messes around with the Hays Code. I like the story, and its visuals are pretty pleasing to the eye. So 3 stars out of 4. Okay, and number 3 is Pickup on South Street from 1953. This is when I was, again, these aren't ranked in order of I watched them. So when I watched this one, this is when I realized Samuel Fuller was really into economic pacing. All his films are pretty much really brisk and zippy, but they still are packed with drama and energy. The majority of these films on this entire list are between 80 minutes and 99, except the big red one, that was 113, like I said. Yet they never felt hurried, despite packing in a lot of drama and a lot of plot. There's also a confrontation. This is also when I realized Fuller is not shy to have confrontational and raw approaches to his bursts of violence in his films, especially for the times that they were released. One powerful scene in this film, Pickup on South Street, I won't spoil it, is so clearly influential, not just on specific filmmakers, but cinema as a whole. There's a scene where somebody is killed with, a calm and slow song playing diegetically in the background. It's basically a trope now. And diegetically means the characters can hear the music. So it's like playing in the actual room that the person is killed. So the story is Pickup on South Street follows a middle-class dame, Candy, who has her purse pickpocketed on the subway as she's making her last delivery for her ex-boyfriend. Neither she nor the pickpocket knows what was in her purse that was being delivered and to who. As it turns out, it is a film strip containing top secret American government secrets, and it's being delivered to communist spies. Neither her or the pickpocket knew this. And what's cool cinematically about the movie is feeling trapped by their circumstances and Cold War tensions. Fuller frames these characters frequently in tight close-ups and tight environments. I wouldn't mind if this film was overtly anti-communist, but I'll always be more grateful for a film that is nuanced and subtle and realistic. And this is pretty close to that, I guess, especially for 1953. There are neither obvious heroes nor are there obvious villains. It's classic noir, right? This is Cold War noir. But speaking of noir, I wish this had the fiery dialogue and more of the distinct visual language the genre is known for. And of course, being 1953, there is a forced romance. This one really did not need it, more so than The Naked Kiss needed it. It is jammed down our throats like a government mandate. Candy falls in love with Skip, the pickpocket, who pickpocketed her. After just meeting once for only a few moments, I can kind of forgive it from a film circa 1953, or if Candy had some sort of background that would explain how or why she would fall in love so easily. But in general, this just kind of drives me crazy. They still do it today. For movies that need no romance at all, they force one. I don't know why Hollywood is obsessed with doing that. Anyway, it is a well-acted, well-crafted, and well-directed flick. 3 stars. All right, so number 2 is 40 Guns from 1950. I've been wanting to watch this since 2017 or 2018 when the Criterion Collection first announced its release. I was drawn to the art, the director, and the title. Like a lot of Fuller flicks, this is a speedy one and is modestly budgeted that somehow was able to shoot on the CinemaScope format in just 15 days. Barbara Stanwyck stars as a rancher lady who runs a little town with the help of her 40-man posse. I do think Sullivan. I think it's what Barry Sullivan. Oh, when Barry Sullivan shows up with his two brothers on behalf of the government to bring in a couple of Barbara Stanwyck's dudes, they develop a romance. The dialogue is great. The movie looks great. It moves along great and tells a good story with great energy and style. The romance isn't as rushed as any of the others on this list, but I do think Sullivan is miscast. Um, I don't like that the romance is rushed at all, but at least not so much as the others. As I'm sounding like a broken record, I know. But worst of all, it misses. It misses the perfect ending by a hair. It is right there in front of them, right there in front of them, and they miss it. And they missed it. You know, it was right there in front of them in broad daylight, and they missed it. And it's an ending that would fit right in with Fuller's sensibilities rather than Hollywood's. Bummer. But still, I was tempted to give this 4 out of 4 stars, but I just went with a 3. All right, and number 1 is Underworld USA from 1961. This and Street of No Return were the only 2 Fuller flicks I did not know prior to this week. And this one happened to be my favorite. I almost want to give it 4 stars as well, like 40 Guns. So now, no matter what anyone says, no matter what they tell you, I don't care who they are, I don't care if it's a TCM guy on screen before the movie, this is definitely noir. If your definition of noir requires a specific time period, well, then you're gay. I hate to tell you that. By 1961, the film's release date, noir was apparently over just by a few years. Yet Fuller was like, not yet. Not until I make this bad boy right here. And he does. We got an anti-hero, a breathy saxophone on the score. We got crackling dialogue, a fatalist story, high contrast black and white visuals. Yeah, I know there's no femme fatale or moody narration. There's no narration at all. But you point to me a noir film that checks off every single noir check mark. Okay? I will wait. It doesn't exist, okay? They're all missing something. It is not a perfect movie, though, I will say. One scene lacked the power to shock it needed, and instead is so awkwardly cut and staged. It just almost ruins the whole movie because the rest of the movie is just so good. And there's something about the pacing of the film that is off, even though it's 98 minutes. I can't put my finger on it. Anyway, that's it. That's my list. That's my list ranked of Samuel Fuller films. And as usual, I want to know, what is your favorite Samuel Fuller flick? Okay, you know what to do. You just like and subscribe so you can find out who that next week filmmaker is. It's a doozy.
Why are there so many movies?